fluorescent lights of hearing room 2141 in the Rayburn House office building cast an unforgiving glow on the witness table. The chamber, with its rich wood paneling and imposing dais, had hosted countless congressional hearings over decades, but few had generated the anticipation that electrified the room on this crisp October morning. Camera shutters clicked in rapid succession as Oprah Winfrey entered, flanked by attorneys. The media mogul, typically commanding any room she entered, appeared more subdued today. She straightened her navy blazer as she took her seat at the witness table, adjusting the microphone with practiced precision. The hearing room had reached capacity hours earlier. Congressional staffers, journalists, industry executives, and members of the public fortunate enough to secure seats sat in rigid anticipation. Outside, a line stretched down Independence Avenue, while network satellite trucks crowded the streets surrounding the Capitol complex. The Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce will come to order, announced Chairwoman Eleanor Rodriguez, her gavel striking with authority. Today's hearing addresses allegations of deceptive practices in the wellness industry, with specific focus on celebrity endorsements and their impact on public health. What began 8 months earlier as a routine FDA investigation into supplement marketing had escalated into a full congressional inquiry that placed one of America's most trusted public figures at its center. Winfrey's wellness empire, built over decades through her media platforms and partnerships, now faced unprecedented scrutiny. Rodriguez continued, her tone measured but firm. Ms. Winfrey, you have been called to testify regarding your promotion of wellness products and the extent to which consumers may have been misled about their efficacy or safety. This committee seeks to understand the responsibility public figures bear when endorsing health-related products. As Winfrey raised her right hand for the oath, the gravity of the moment was evident in her expression. For 3 decades, she had built a reputation on authenticity and trust. Now that very foundation was being questioned before a congressional committee and millions of viewers watching the live broadcast. "I do," Winfrey stated clearly, after completing the oath, her voice carrying through the chamber with characteristic resonance. The controversy had ignited 6 months earlier, when investigative journalists at The Atlantic published an exposé titled "The Wellness Deception." The comprehensive report detailed how several products heavily promoted through Winfrey's media platforms contained ingredients that lacked scientific support for their claimed benefits. More troublingly, the investigation revealed internal communications suggesting that Winfrey's company had been informed of these discrepancies, but continued promotions nonetheless. What transformed the story from industry controversy to national scandal was the revelation that thousands of consumers had reported adverse health effects after using these products, with documentation suggesting that these reports had been systematically downplayed. Ranking Member Congressman James Marshall began the questioning, his southern drawl contrasting with the formality of the proceedings. Ms. Winfrey, throughout your remarkable career, you've emphasized authenticity and truth. Millions of Americans trust your recommendations implicitly. Did you personally review the scientific evidence supporting the health claims made by products featured on your platforms? Winfrey leaned toward the microphone. Congressman, I've always believed in the products I've shared with my audience. My team conducts extensive vetting, including consulting with medical experts. However, she paused, choosing her words carefully. I recognize now that our process was not as rigorous as the public deserved. This acknowledgement, the first public admission of potential oversight, sent ripples through the hearing room. Journalists' fingers flew across keyboards as the statement instantly appeared on news chyrons nationwide. Not as rigorous, repeated Congresswoman Sophia Chen from California. Ms. Winfrey, I have here an email dated March 15th of last year from your Chief Content Officer to your Wellness Product Division. She held up a document that had been entered into evidence. It states, and I quote, O is concerned about the clinical trials, but we need this segment to proceed for Q2 targets. Minimize the health claims language, but keep the transformational messaging. Could you explain what concerned about the clinical trials meant in this context? The chamber fell silent as Winfrey's composure momentarily faltered. This was the email that had become central to the controversy. Evidence suggesting direct knowledge of questionable science behind products she had enthusiastically endorsed to her trusting audience. That email referred to preliminary data that required further verification, Winfrey responded, her voice steady but lacking its usual warmth. I expressed concern that we needed more robust evidence before proceeding. In retrospect, we should have paused the entire campaign until we had that verification. For the next hour, committee members from both parties pressed Winfrey on the disconnect between her brand's values and the internal communications revealed in the investigation. Republicans focused on corporate responsibility and consumer protection, while Democrats emphasized the particular impact on vulnerable communities who trusted Winfrey implicitly. The most dramatic moment came when Congressman David Levinson displayed a large photograph of Patricia Mercer, a 62-year-old retired teacher from Michigan who had suffered liver damage after taking supplements promoted on Winfrey's platform. Ms. Mercer stated that she never would have tried this product if you hadn't assured your audience it was safe, Levinson said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. She said, and I'm quoting directly, "If Oprah said it worked, I believed it. I never thought I needed to question something she recommended." What would you say to Ms. Mercer today? The camera captured a close-up of Winfrey's face as she absorbed the question. For decades, she had connected with audiences through vulnerability and emotional transparency. Now, facing the human cost of her enterprise's actions, that same authenticity was required in a far more difficult context. I would tell her, I'm deeply sorry, Winfrey responded, her voice breaking slightly. Her trust was misplaced not because I intended to mislead, but because I failed to ensure that every product associated with my name met the highest standards of safety and efficacy. That failure is my responsibility, and I accept it fully. The testimony continued through the afternoon, covering the complex relationship between celebrity influence, corporate interests, and consumer welfare. Winfrey acknowledged that her company had incentives to promote products that drove revenue, but insisted that financial motivations had never intentionally overridden consumer safety. Outside the hearing room, public reaction unfolded across traditional and social media platforms. Hashtags Oprah testifies and Why Wellness Accountability trended nationally. Supporters praised her willingness to acknowledge mistakes, while critics questioned whether her admissions came too late for those who had suffered health consequences. What we're witnessing is the collision of celebrity influence with public health responsibility, observed Dr. Rebecca Steinberg, a medical ethics professor at Johns Hopkins during a CNN panel. When someone with Winfrey's cultural authority promotes health products, it carries an implicit guarantee of safety that transcends ordinary advertising. That power demands extraordinary diligence. Meanwhile, on Fox News, consumer protection attorney Michael Roberts noted, "There's a legal concept called puffery that allows companies to make exaggerated claims in advertising. But when those claims enter the realm of health and wellness, and when they're delivered by someone consumers deeply trust, we enter different territory legally and ethically." As the hearing entered its fourth hour, Chairwoman Rodriguez shifted focus to remedial actions. Ms. Winfrey, beyond apologies, what concrete steps are you taking to address the harm caused and prevent similar situations in the future? Winfrey straightened in her chair, and for the first time that day, spoke without referencing her prepared notes. Effective immediately, I've established an independent scientific review board that will evaluate any product before it receives my endorsement. This board will have absolute veto power, regardless of business considerations. Additionally, my companies are creating a $150 million fund to compensate individuals who experienced adverse effects from products we promoted. she continued, her voice growing stronger. Most importantly, I'm committing to complete transparency. We will publish all scientific evidence supporting any health claim associated with products I endorse, including any conflicting studies. My audience deserves nothing less than the full context needed to make informed decisions about their well-being. This announcement, not previously shared with the press, immediately dominated breaking news alerts. Health advocacy organizations cautiously welcomed the measures, while industry analysts noted the precedent-setting implications for celebrity endorsements across the wellness sector. As the hearing concluded, Chairwoman Rodriguez delivered closing remarks that captured the broader significance of the day's testimony. Ms. Winfrey, your influence extends far beyond entertainment or media. You have shaped how millions of Americans think about health, wellness, and personal transformation. With that extraordinary influence comes, extraordinary responsibility, a responsibility that today's testimony suggests was not always fully met. She continued, addressing the broader audience both in the room and watching remotely. This committee will continue its work examining the intersection of celebrity endorsements, public health, and consumer protection. The wellness industry, now worth over $4.5 trillion globally, requires oversight proportionate to its impact on American lives. After the hearing, Winfrey emerged from the Rayburn building into the autumn afternoon, facing a wall of cameras and reporters shouting questions. Rather than hurrying to her waiting vehicle, she paused to deliver a brief statement that would later be recognized as the beginning of her reputation's reconstruction. Today was difficult but necessary, she said, her voice steady. Throughout my career, I've faced difficult truths and grown from them. This is one such moment. To everyone who trusted my recommendations and was disappointed or harmed, I offer my deepest apology. Trust is earned through consistency and transparency. I'm committed to rebuilding that trust day by day, recommendation by recommendation. In the weeks following her testimony, the media landscape buzzed with analysis of the hearing's implications. The Washington Post published a comprehensive feature examining the Oprah effect in health marketing, while The New Yorker released a profile titled Trust and Consequence: Oprah's Reckoning with Influence. Medical journals entered the conversation, with The Lancet publishing an editorial on Celebrity Endorsement as an Unregulated Determinant of Public Health. Harvard Business Review contributed analysis on reputation risk in the wellness economy, citing the Winfrey case as a watershed moment for corporate governance in the sector. Social media engagement revealed a public wrestling with complicated emotions, disappointment in a trusted figure, recognition of the complexity behind wellness marketing, and debate about where responsibility ultimately lay between celebrities, companies, and consumers themselves. 3 months after the congressional testimony, the impact continued to reverberate through American culture and commerce. The FDA announced enhanced oversight of supplement marketing, specifically targeting celebrity endorsements. Several major retailers implemented new verification requirements for wellness products. Media companies revised their advertising policies around health claims. For Winfrey personally, the path forward combined accountability with action. True to her commitment, her company launched a public database documenting the scientific evidence behind any product receiving her endorsement. The Transparency Initiative received praise from consumer advocates and medical professionals who had previously been critical. In her first major interview following the hearing, with CBS's Jane Pauley, Winfrey reflected on the experience with characteristic introspection. "I've built a career helping people share their truth," she said. "This chapter forced me to confront my own. The truth that influence without rigorous oversight can unintentionally cause harm. I've always believed that when you know better, you do better. Now I know better." Pauley pressed her on whether the wellness industry's fundamental promise of transformation through products was inherently misleading. Winfrey paused thoughtfully. "There's an important distinction between hope and hype. Hope acknowledges the complexity of well-being and the limits of any single solution. Hype promises easy answers and miracle results. I regret times when my platform blurred that line. Moving forward, I'm committed to offering hope grounded in facts, not hype dressed up as inspiration. The Winfrey wellness controversy ultimately transcended one celebrity or company to prompt a national conversation about truth in an age of influence. It raised fundamental questions about responsibility in the digital ecosystem. Who bears the burden of verification when trusted voices promote health products? Where do the boundaries lie between inspiration and accountability? How do we balance innovation with protection? 1 year after her congressional testimony, Winfrey delivered the commencement address at Columbia University's School of Journalism. Her message to the graduating class reflected the lessons of her public reckoning. Influence without accountability is merely celebrity, she told the aspiring journalists. True leadership, in media, in business, in public service, requires the courage to subject your own words and actions to the same scrutiny you would demand of others. Trust is not granted permanently. It must be re-earned every day through transparency, consistency, and the willingness to acknowledge when you've fallen short. She concluded with words that captured the essence of her journey from media icon to the center of controversy and, ultimately, to a more nuanced understanding of her responsibility. Your credibility is your most precious asset, more valuable than ratings, more enduring than viral moments, more significant than any single achievement. Guard it fiercely, examine it honestly, and when you inevitably make mistakes, repair it transparently. The privilege of being believed carries with it the obligation to be worthy of that belief. The Winfrey wellness controversy remains a defining case study in celebrity accountability, consumer trust, and the complex ethics of influence. It demonstrated how even the most trusted public figures must navigate the responsibility that comes with their platforms, especially when their words can shape not just public opinion, but public health. More importantly, it revealed the resilience of a culture that can simultaneously hold people accountable and allow them the grace to acknowledge mistakes and commit to doing better. In an era often characterized by permanent judgments and cancel culture, Winfrey's journey offered an alternative path, one where accountability becomes not the end of credibility, but the foundation for its authentic restoration. For viewers watching this story unfold, the lesson extends beyond celebrity culture or wellness marketing. It speaks to fundamental questions we all face about the information we consume and the voices we trust. In a world where influence is increasingly democratized through social media and traditional gatekeepers are diminished, the responsibility for critical evaluation ultimately rests with each of us, to question not just those we distrust, but perhaps especially those we instinctively believe. The true measure of influence, as Winfrey herself came to acknowledge, lies not in the power to persuade, but in the integrity to earn and maintain trust, especially when doing so requires facing uncomfortable truths and accepting responsibility for their consequences.